Exceptional Randos show is produced live in Sunroom Studios' Bass Capsule and in partnership with KLST 103.5, RadioCallisti.org. Remember to catch our Exceptional Randos live stream on YouTube every Sunday between 2 and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have a story, idea, or question that you would like to share, we want to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
Well, that was random.
Exceptional Radio. Good afternoon. It's the 16th of May, and people have been filling plastic bags with gasoline because a pipeline got hacked, and then it was restored a couple days later.
And preppers, what are you going to do with preppers?
These are the people that cause shortages.
Yep. If they run out and do shit like that, I'm so glad it didn't impact where we are, just because it's like, you know, obviously people here are slightly more rational than the average American because they weren't running out. And, you know, I don't think I ever saw a line at the gas station here.
I didn't see a line at the gas station, but I did go take my fuel can for the lawnmower and stuff like that. I took that to fill it up, and there was this guy blocking the one pump that I needed. I needed the alcohol-free pure gas for like lawnmowers and stuff like that. And he was sitting there, like, he had like a bunch of gas cans, 5 or 6 of them, and they were all small, and he was just filling them up one by one. That's the only example of this that I saw at all, of anyone like filling up all of their gas cans. But he had gas cans. He didn't have like, plastic tubs or plastic bags or, containers that are not intended for gasoline.
Huh. Yeah, I wonder, I mean, maybe he runs like a lawnmower service or something.
That's just Occam's razor. that's kind of obvious. I think that's the case. That would make the most sense.
Just because if somebody's got 5 gas cans, they probably have them for a reason. And it's like farmers usually, if they have a ton of equipment that needs gas, they keep reserves on their actual premises.
Yeah.
So it's not even, I don't think it would be like a farmer, but maybe somebody who's like,
I don't even think that this guy qualifies for the gotta fuel up frenzy. I think it was just some guy. Right.
That's what I mean. It sounds like, if he's got gas cans and not trash bags, he's not like out of his mind, and there's some sort of logic to it, which makes me wonder if it's like lawnmower company or some shit, like a small lawnmower company.
Yeah. No, that just makes sense.
Yeah, because it definitely doesn't sound like big enough to be a farmer, but it don't sound like a crazy person either.
Oh, speaking of crazy people, I'm not sure this guy's actually crazy. I just think he might be a little. No, this guy's crazy. A Space Force lieutenant colonel got removed from his command because he went on some conservative podcast and said that he thought the military was becoming infected with Marxist ideologies.
I mean, technically, they're socialists because they are funded by tax money. So yes. Yeah.
That's like exactly what I thought when I read that. It's like, well,
I mean, yeah. I don't think he meant it that way, but it's definitely a socialist organization.
he's quoted as saying, "Since taking command as a commander about 10 months ago, I saw what I consider fundamentally incompatible and competing narratives of what America was and should be." That wasn't just what he said on like social. He went in depth on this podcast apparently, and it was sufficient to like violate the trust with command, and they removed him.
He said something about critical race theory too, which is where it's like I think he said critical race theory is rooted in Marxism or some stupid shit where all these people talk about critical race theory and they have no idea what it is. They just use this term basically to refer to anything that's calling out white supremacy and call it critical race theory. They don't know what critical race theory is because it's not being taught in like elementary school. They're not teaching critical race theory in elementary. An elementary school child wouldn't be able to comprehend actual critical race theory. So the way that they're framing it is anything that alludes to white supremacy in American infrastructure, they're calling that critical race theory. So they're trying to get it so that no schools are allowed to teach about white supremacy, basically. That's what they're trying to do by just using this blanket nebulous critical race theory term because none of them actually know what critical race theory is.
You know, the first document like submitted by academics that I found is on a quick Google search for critical race theory is from 2009, Critical Race Theory, an examination of its past, present, and future implications. And this was authored by a master's in education, and it's got some other people involved, it looks like, but this is a 19-page thesis. This isn't like I can't just like scan this and be like, yeah, this is what's going on. This is very clearly a complex subject.
Right. And the way that they're trying to just ban it as if it's like, you know, they're teaching it to kindergartners. It's really crazy, man. Because then you hear stuff where the parents will talk about shit and then it'll bleed into the classrooms. Like my friend was telling me how the parent basically the parents are indoctrinating their kids, and one of the other kids told his kid that Dr. Seuss was canceled because he killed black people, and obviously that's not what's that's not what happened, but this is the way kids are now talking about it because parents are indoctrinating their kids to try to counter what they believe to be liberal cancel culture and then going in the exact like far opposite direction and then just telling their kids just made up shit like, yeah, they're saying Dr. Seuss killed black people, which is not true. Dr. Seuss would never do that. But these liberals think if they lie about Dr. Seuss, then we'll be afraid to read stuff. So it's really crazy how
You can still go on like Amazon and buy the really racist Dr. Seuss literature. You can still buy those old books. I mean, they're used. They're really used, and the paper is pretty, it's pretty weathered. But you can look at the images that he created of really highly racist images he created of like Asian people or Jewish people, of Italian people, and there's, I mean, it's all really tied to the tensions in Europe around the early portion and early half of the 20th century, of course. But I mean, they don't show this stuff to kids in elementary school. They might have at one point, but I'm pretty sure that stuff was always for adults. And we get to look at it with a modern lens, of course. Shit was really different back then.
I mean, kids see it.
Yeah.
Like, they actually see Dr. Seuss, but they're not being taught like critical race theory in school about why Dr. Seuss is racist.
Yeah.
Only indoctrinating parents are coming in and saying stupid shit like that. Like, and they're like misrepresenting it as if you can't, like you said, you can just go on Amazon and buy a fucking Dr. Seuss book. It's not like Dr. Seuss books are impossible to find now, and you know they're wiped off the face of the planet or something, or you can't go download a digital version. It's not inaccessible now, but they're trying to make it seem as if they burned all the Dr. Seuss books because he killed black people, or they're saying he killed black people, and it's like, man. Fucking to then act like they're not indoctrinating their kids to try to turn around and limit schools from talking about white supremacy that aren't really talking about white supremacy in the first place. Like, preemptively stop them from talking about white supremacy. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. This isn't something that just happened. They've been playing this. They've been doing this for years. Mm-hmm. Generations. It's interesting though, the whole the reappropriation of cancel culture in as opposed to consequence culture. I'm not even sure when cancel.
I mean, I don't know if either one actually exists. Neither one exists.
Yeah, well, consequences exist.
No, they don't. Not in America. If you're rich enough. No, they don't. I mean, Michael Vick may have gone to jail, but he's fine now, right?
That's true.
Eddie Murphy may have lost his career for like a couple of months, but he's fine now, right? Chris Brown, I could just go through, what's the name? Andrew Cuomo. Why is Andrew Cuomo still around? Matt Gaetz. Just none of these fucking people have consequences. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump. I could just go through O.J. Simpson. Dick Cheney fucking shot his own quote unquote friend in the fucking face. Nothing. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a punchline. Shooting somebody in the face. These people don't face consequences. We face consequences for shit we didn't even do. If I'm in the wrong neighborhood, I'll get drugs playing on me that I didn't even do, and go to jail for it. I've had that happen to a friend, and it's like, we'll face consequences as non-rich people, but rich people, they don't get canceled or face consequences, but then they'll cry about it. Like Ellen, what did I do? What did I do? I'm just a shy person. Fuck out of here, Ellen. You're a horrible human being. Ellen finally had to give up her show. Sharon Osbourne, racist, horrible human being. Sharon Osbourne is one of the most horrible human beings on the planet. Finally, it took decades for her to actually have any sort of consequence. And then she just goes to Britain and has people kissing her ass because she's being openly racist. Now she just finds a different audience to like kiss her ass. So it's not even real consequences. It's like, it's real crazy how regular people like you and myself, we face consequences.
Yeah,
But
I think that's what I mean by a consequence culture that exists for most people. I don't think that any I don't think that very many things apply to the ultra wealthy or the actual elite of this country. They just buy their way out. I remember reading about one of those Disney kids who turned into adult stars somehow, who kept crashing her Porsche into things. What was it Lindsay Lohan or something? Yeah, she totaled her Porsche, a decade ago. I guess that was the end of it for her. I never read anything about that afterwards. I just remember reading about it. He was like, at the time, it was like she got in another accident. Here's some person who gets in another accident. And normal people lose their licenses. Normal people can't afford to replace a Porsche. God, that shit's just sad.
I want to say she lost her license but kept driving anyway. Funkmaster Flex did that shit, and he came out with fucking driving shoes. And dude was notorious for not having a license and driving around because he would videotape it and post it. It's like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
Oh, they're made by lugs.
Yeah, fucking driving shoes. It was the dumbest shit ever, man. He was doing it just to troll the government, basically. Like, oh yeah, you don't want to give me a license? I'm gonna make driving shoes. Like, what? What are you doing, man? What are you doing? We know you don't have a license. We know you're not allowed to have a license. Going to car shows and shit.
Let's see, what other weird products have come out of Birdman tattoos? Shady Limited.
Do you remember when they tried to make Joe Rogan a source of information, and then they did the Joe Rogan Daily and tried to have an online news outlet that was based around Joe Rogan? It was right after the Joe Rogan Questions Everything TV show was launched and quickly failed.
I must have missed this because I can't imagine that he's got something to say about anything every day.
It wasn't even him, dude. It was like they're just trying to make a news outlet that used his name. That was like based around his name. It was so weird. And this is where, again, do you remember Joe Rogan Questions Everything show?
Vaguely. It all just kind of blends into one variation of a YouTube channel to me.
It must have been 2008. It was either 2008 or 2012. It must have been closer to 2012 because I think there was like some Mayan shit involved.
Oh no, this is actually a TV show on Sci-Fi. Yeah. I probably would have avoided this. I don't know. I don't have Sci-Fi channel. I never really got into their whole, sign up to watch model that preceded all the other streaming aggregate. And I also haven't had cable for over a decade, so I'm actually out of touch with a lot of television. If it's not on like Hulu, then I'm not really aware of what it is.
I haven't had cable in 20 years either because I pirate things. So I don't know what your excuse is.
I mean, I just haven't paid for like a cable subscription willingly. I just use the internet.
I haven't paid for cable in like 20 years because it's like, it's dumb. Pirates are better at getting things up online They're quicker.
A lot of times it's
they're
like
better.
the day of broadcast.
Within an hour. They'll have it up within an hour. And then the same show, like the channels that are putting the stuff out can't even get it up within, like, it'll be 24 hours before they'll have the shit up online.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, fucking pirates make it, like, it was easier to find pirated versions of like the Wonder Woman movie, Invincible, fucking Falcon and Winter Soldier, them waiting for that shit to properly load when everybody's down, like overloading Disney servers or AT&T servers or whomever is hosting the shit. Their servers can't handle when everybody rushes to it at the same time. So you can't even fucking watch it when it's supposed to be released a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like Batman or the Justice League Snyder Cut, that shit was like damn near inaccessible the first couple hours it's supposed to be released, but it's like accessible for pirates, and that shit pisses me off because I'm like, I get AT&T or what's it called, HBO Max for free because of the internet service, so I wouldn't pay for that shit. But knowing that when they release shit, it's actually sometimes easier to just go find the pirated version. It's fucking annoying. That's why I hate capitalism, because the shit you actually pay for, even though I don't pay for that, if I was paying for that, it wouldn't work. And it's even more infuriating because I know other people are paying for that shit and don't know how to go find the pirated version, so they're paying for something that they're not able to use, and because they don't know how to go find it elsewhere, they're just not even able to get something that they pay for.
No, that's very real. I have a few movies on iTunes that I bought because I wanted to watch them on my phone for some reason, and I tried to watch them on my 4K computer system, and they're supposed to be 4K. I paid extra for the 4K, but it won't let me watch them in 4K. For whatever reason, iTunes consumes all of the resources. You know, this is like a ancient piece of software at this point. You think they'd get it all worked out by now, but it doesn't work very well, even on a fairly modern GPU. You'd think they'd have this stuff ironed out, but I can't even stream it. It's just deadly slow.
Yeah, because then, you know, there was a period where we were paying for the UFC events and the fucking streams would crap out, and I'm sitting here like a fucking idiot paying $45 then, because when we were paying it was like $45. Now it's up to $60. I think the Connor one may have even been $70. I don't know. I don't fucking pay for that shit. So
ESPN Plus pay-per-view for $69.99.
Yep, it was $70 goddamn dollars, man. Fuck that shit, because the stream is gonna suck half the time when people are fucking bombarding their servers and their servers aren't built to handle it. And you're paying for shit and they're not upgrading their servers. And so you might as well fucking go pirate it. And that's what I'm looking at it like. You know, I used to pay for this shit. Now knowing how little of the money actually goes to the fighters, I don't feel bad for pirating it because the fighters aren't getting the fucking money anyway. So I'm not paying $70 goddamn dollars for fucking pay-per-view on top of a subscription fee for fucking ESPN Plus that's like $5 a month to then have none of that money go to the fucking fighters. That's idiot shit. Only an idiot would do that.
I think
thinking that they're supporting their fighters.
Imagine going to a professional sporting event and you're sitting there in the crowds and you got your beer in one hand and your popcorn in the other, or your hot dog, whatever you want to eat, and the fight's happening, and then all of a sudden all the lights on the ring just go out and you can't hear anything anymore, and you can't even hear the crowd noise, and you're just waiting. And then it comes back on, and you've missed like 30 seconds of it, and now they're in some completely different situation where the roles kind of reversed. And it's like, how the fuck did this happen? I would be so disappointed and pissed off if I'd spent money to go to a place where that kind of shit was happening, like some kind of holographic fight.
Oh, it was so fucking. I mean, yeah, and that's where again, Um, it was some Anderson Silva fight. I remember because then we even started. There was a period where we would go out to like BW3s or Show Me's or whatever. There would be places that would fucking play the event. So if you go out and buy food, they're
Yeah.
it's still they're paying for the license, so you're not technically pirating it. But then a lot of these places would have shitty food, so then you go out and pay for this fucking bullshit food because too many people are there, and then
It just hurts you later.
yeah, it's not worth. It wasn't worth it, man. The way that the UFC has watered down their product, not paying the fighters, continue to exploit the fighters, and then don't really give them an exit plan. I'm not giving them my fucking money. I'm not giving them money. You're crazy.
I think
You're crazy.
they spend a lot of effort trying to create these. It reminds me a lot of WWF, except I know these guys are actually beating the living crap out of each other. But they try to craft or cultivate these personalities, and sometimes the personalities are just not that interesting.
And they pick that you can tell when they're trying to do it, and they pick people like this weekend they picked Michael Chandler. Every goddamn UFC pre-fight video had Michael Chandler as the thumbnail. And going into this weekend, it's like, he had a good chance of winning. He almost won the fight in the first round. But ultimately, Charles Oliveira won. So the UFC put all their chips on Michael Chandler, and he fucking lost. Now they look like idiots because they barely fucking promoted the guy who won the fucking championship. And they do this. They constantly will bet on the wrong person. And it's just, they're ruining their own brand. Me as a person who's been watching for a long time, they're ruining their own brand. I didn't do this. I stopped giving them money because they're fucking around with the money and they're not using it to make their brand better. They're just fucking over the fighters. They're exploiting their bodies and they're making a worse product. The reason like Chris Weidman's leg broke is because they push these people to the fucking limit and they don't actually. I think the big scandal that has really been kind of overlooked with the whole Diego Sanchez shit is they're putting these fighters in there after they depleted themselves of fluids and they haven't actually had a chance to heal from training. So you have people going in there with microfractures on all parts of their bodies, whether it's their legs or their fucking, arms or whatever. And they haven't had a chance to actually heal. And the UFC doesn't give a shit because that makes for better finishes. Like Jacare Souza getting his arm broken. I guarantee you that's because he had some microfracture going into it. And there's all these things like watching it, the way that these fighters on the scales look so gaunt and depleted, and they're trying to make it seem as if they're in shape and cut. Joe Rogan will constantly be like, oh, this person looks so shredded. No, they look like they haven't fucking eaten in weeks. That's what they look like. They look like they're starved. They look like they've been walking through the fucking desert and haven't had food for weeks. It doesn't look good. So then when the UFC is trying to present these dehydrated, overtrained, underfed people as healthy to make it seem like when they're going in these fights, they're not at their worst possible shape. It's a big circus act that I think a lot of people can't see through because they don't train. And this is where I've been training Muay Thai for a very long time now. So I've been recently doing more shin conditioning. My shins will swell up for like 2 weeks. When you kick really hard, and this is just kicking a heavy bag or kicking pads, I'm not kicking another human being's bones. My shins will swell up for like 2 weeks, and there'll be days where I can barely walk. And it's just from conditioning. So let alone these dudes are going and sparring and actually getting knocked out in practice. They're definitely getting fractures, and they're not getting a chance to heal before they're going in fights. That's why Chris Weidman broke his fucking leg. That's the big secret. So then when Yoel Romero leaves the UFC and tries to go fight in Bellator, the doctor won't clear his ass because the UFC's been clearing these people when they haven't. They shouldn't be getting cleared. Yeah. That's the big fucking secret that I think everyone tried to like point at Diego being crazy and just gloss over that because the MMA media is fucking full of people who are afraid to lose their jobs and are afraid to go after Dana. That's the problem. They're afraid to go after Dana White. So I'm going after Dana White saying he's putting these people in there, paying these fucking doctors to look away from these x-rays and medical reports saying that 95% of these fighters going these fights should not be fucking medically cleared. And one thing I think they're also doing is they're probably doing the medical clearance before the weight cuts, if I'm not mistaken. So there's all these things about.
So are these guys just like cutting a lot of weight so they can fight in a lower weight class or something? Because yes. When I'm looking at pictures of a lot of these fighters, they just look like they're emaciated. I mean, they've got muscles, but.
Dude, Michael Chandler walks around at 190 fucking 5. He fights at 155. That's 40 fucking pounds, Tien.
Dude, that's 20% of his weight. Fuck. You know, when you lose 20% of your weight, you're actually supposed to go to the hospital.
Dude, Michael Bisping fought with a glass eye.
What?
And nobody noticed. Nobody fucking noticed that he didn't have a real eye. Supposedly, none of these doctors noticed that he didn't have a fucking. Dude, this is what I'm saying. And this is where when GSP retired the first time, he said some shit that made it sound like he was scared to fight in Vegas because of the mafia or something. Like, he said this, not me. I'm not making this shit up. Anybody who wants to go check this can go check it. So this is not conjecture or speculation. Whenever Johnny Hendricks was fighting, GSP was accusing him of being roided out, and this was before USADA came in. So then when USADA came in, all of a sudden Johnny Hendricks' fucking career just went in the fucking gutter, and this dude looked overnight dad bod because he wasn't like super shredded before, but once USADA came in and started testing people, it was clear that this dude was on the sauce, on the juice, and GSP calling it out, and USADA subsequently coming in is what made him lose his PED edge. So there's all these things that happen where if you come in and exit mixed martial arts, you don't know the sequence of events, but I've been watching since like Royce Gracie was fighting. So there's these things where there's this element of, I saw when Pride was like basically feeding people cans and paying people to fix fights so the records were stacked. And then when UFC bought the Pride roster, then they're bringing in these people like Rampage and Shogun, trying to like continue the hype on these people who clearly had their records stacked by feeding them cans, and then they come over to the UFC and can't compete. So Dana White has to then change how the UFC works to be more in line with like WWE type narratives, but making it seem like that's not what they're doing. So this is where you get the Ultimate Fighter type shit, where it's like all narrative with a fight a week. So it's like you're getting these narratives being built, not realizing that's what's happened. So now UFC is like 95% narrative, 5% fight, whereas before it used to be maybe like 95% fight, 5% narrative. And I think this is where it's completely flipped. So now you get people like Conor McGregor and Colby Covington, Chael Sonnen talking their ways into people thinking they're good when they're not.
Daniel, Daniel Cormier looks like he's healthy.
Daniel Cormier is the same shit, bro. He's the same can like when Strike Force was happening, Strike Force was feeding people cans too. So Daniel Cormier's record is stacked with cans. So then, man, he's such a great example. He's like an Olympic level wrestler who never took training seriously. So then when he's competing in mixed martial arts, he's making a bunch of other mediocre wrestlers look bad with mediocre level striking. So then because he's competing with cans, then Daniel Cormier looks like this world-class mixed martial artist. But then you see him fight John Jones, and then you're like, oh, he was never like elite. He was like almost elite, but there's this elite level that Daniel Cormier never crossed because he never took his training seriously. Same shit with Cain Velasquez. You can point at all these people, Rampage Jackson, Derek Lewis.
I've scrolled through probably 500 images on image search, on Google image search for UFC fighters, and he was the only one that kind of looked healthy.
Daniel Cormier is a fat ass, bro. Let's keep it real.
No, I mean, and that's
not
by healthy. I mean, not like not dehydrated or hasn't eaten.
Healthy, though.
But he's the only one that looked like he's eating a sandwich. Wait, no, there's Brock Lesnar looks like he ate a sandwich.
No, Daniel Cormier is not healthy. No, 100% no. Because, dude, now Google Daniel Cormier college. Then you'll see what healthy Daniel Cormier looks like. Look at Google Daniel Cormier college photo when he was 185. Yeah, that's healthy Daniel Cormier, bro. That's healthy Daniel Cormier. You see the difference? Chuckles ate his son. When young Daniel Cormier, old Chuckles ate him. Dad DC walks around over 300 pounds, bro. He is not healthy. When he's cutting weight, when he was cutting for heavyweight, he was cutting down from like 285, 295, and he would get up past 300. Dude was for healthy, even at 205. Even at 205, dude was fat. He was fat at 205, bro. It's crazy. And I can say that because I'm healthier than him. Because I'm more in shape than him, I can call him out for that shit because other people would be like not in a position to be like, oh yeah, whatever. What can you say? Show yourself. Well, yeah, guess what? I am healthier than Daniel Cormier. I know I'm 100% healthier than Daniel Cormier. I'll put up my fucking numbers against Daniel Cormier any goddamn day of the week. Him at 205, him at 2 whatever. He is not fucking healthy, bro. And that's what I'm saying.
I'm just saying, like, out of hundreds of images, he's the only one that even remotely looked healthy.
None of the UFC fighters are healthy. None of these people are healthy. They're all either overtrained or undertrained. It's like the weirdest combination. Because then you see like somebody like Derek Lewis, dude would just skate by on his talent and with boxing. Same with like BJ Penn. There's all these people who, like George St. Pierre is probably the pinnacle. Him and Khabib. There's him, Khabib, and Michael Bisping are probably the pinnacle of proper levels of training in tandem with what they need to actually compete in the octagon, not overworking their bodies in one area. And there's very few people who achieve that balance, which is why they're the top of their game and nobody ever actually like can compete with them. And the only reason Bisping had a tough time is because he fought pre-USADA, so he was fighting a lot of juice people and he was never juicing. So like it's really like when you know the periods of mixed martial arts history, basically pre-2006, there was a lot of steroid use. Basically 70 to 90% of the fighters were on steroids. And then there would be like a 10% that weren't on steroids that were also able to make it to the highest levels. And then even like Hoist Gracie popped at some point, which is people wanted to act like he didn't, but his physique definitely changed. He was definitely roided. So there's all these people who, whether it was because of peer pressure or, just because they had no ethical standards, they would roid, like Vitor Belfort. Like, man, that dude was on all the steroids when he was young. And then you see him go off the steroids, and then you see him go on TRT. So you see these people's bodies change. Josh Barnett used to be on all the steroids, then he went off, grew titties, and it's like that's what happened, man. It's what happened.
I remember in high school health class when they got to the whole part about male reproductive health, and somebody asked about steroids, and they said something about how it made testicles shrink. And one of the guys said something like, so if you start out with the right penis to ball size ratio, it could work out for you in the end. I always thought that was kind of fun.
That person has no idea what they're talking about, because when they say testicle shrinkage, they're talking about like
they shrivel up and turn up into raisins, right?
Yeah, this is like full on atrophy. This is not just like, if you're, you lose a couple of centimeters off your balls. No, this is like they full on atrophy and basically turn into like the equivalent of beef jerky in your body. And that's where it's, that dude's joking, but this is why people who take steroids are fucking dumb, because it's like, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Where you end up with basically no testicles, like
a lot of pent up rage.
Yeah. No, man, it's like it basically they damn near disappear, bro. And that's where I'm saying, like, no, like, I don't think he understands. He might have misunderstood what they mean by testicular atrophy. Like, this is full on, like, they might just straight up just disappear because they're so shriveled. Like, and that's where I'm like, is it really worth it? You must be really in dire need of some gains if you're willing to sacrifice like
your
a part of your body. It don't even matter, just any part of your body. It could have been your pinky toe that's kind of useless in the first place. Like, is it still worth it? Like, I hate my pinky toe. I hate stubbing it on fucking corners. But if somebody was like, hey, if you inject this, you get it super strong, but your pinky toe might just shrivel up and then you have this little piece of skin hanging off. I wouldn't do, I mean, it's not worth it. If it was only the pinky toe, I would still not do it because that's just weird. Like, the idea of losing a body part to gain other body parts. It's weird, man. That's some like capitalist, I'll trade, cut the baby in half. I just need half the baby. I don't care if the baby is alive or not. Just give me half the baby, man.
Yeah, Google image search for steroid testicular atrophy returns quite a few images. And there's a good comparison of testicles before steroids being egg-sized, and then during being grape-sized. And then there are a few, I guess they're just removed. These are just examples of testicles that have been exposed to steroids, and they are tiny and shriveled up, and
they just disappear, man. And that's where I'm
just
like,
sad.
He didn't quite get it. He didn't quite understand what they meant by testicular atrophy.
Back in like 1997, I don't think that they had pictures of testicles for us to examine.
They had no idea, man. And that's why it's so funny to see all these people who heard a few things and were willing to give it all for gains in their teen years.
So they can have titties when they're old men.
Uh-huh. Yep. Titties and no balls. and then go online and complain about what a real man is in America.
Oh man.
Yeah, man. I know some people who took steroids in high school and they definitely grew titties. 100%, almost 100% of them grew titties. Definitely had issues like, and I don't know like if it's chicken or egg with the body dysmorphia. But almost all the people I knew who took steroids in high school have some sort of body dysmorphia to this day. But it's like crazy how the ones who took him in high school are like full on titties now. I mean, like, you know, the hormones and their endocrine systems all fucked up, man. It's like, you know, that's where I know they had the after school specials and shit trying to teach people about it, but it was so easily accessible that I just never wanted to fuck with steroids. And it's like, it's honestly amazing that I never did them, in the sense of they were so easily available in our high school that I want to say probably 60% of all the athletes in our high school were probably on steroids. Like, everybody had abs, everybody was ripped, everybody could bench press over 200 pounds.
There's no way anybody had that kind of time to train, though, right?
Oh, fuck no, bro. I'm saying this is where I'm trying to explain. And I thought that shit was normal until I realized what other high schools were actually like. And I was like, oh my God, everybody was on steroids. And I just thought that shit was normal until, like I said, I saw what other people's high schools were like as an adult. To see that my high school experience was so vastly different, because private schools are like different for all these other reasons, but Park Tudor specifically had a bunch of crazy shit going on there that nobody knew about, that when you were there, it's like, whoa, this feels crazy. But then you get out of it and then you realize how fucking crazy it actually was, to realize like, oh, this is like a super insane situation. This is beyond crazy. The stuff that I saw in high school, I mean, even in middle school. So like, this is gonna sound crazy. This girl in middle school sent a death threat to Hillary Clinton through her. No, bro, this is the tip of the iceberg. So this girl uses her quote unquote best friend at the time's email to send a death threat to Hillary Clinton, who is the wife of Bill Clinton at the time. So it must have been like
sending a death threat to the first lady.
Yes, dude. The next day, the Secret Service was there. The next fucking day, because then everybody's like, what the fuck happened? Because they interviewed the girl whose account it came from, and she was clearly not the person who sent the email. And then the girl who sent the email was then questioned, and that girl was expelled by the end of the fucking day. Bro, that girl's life went downhill. I don't know how bad it was before that. Her life went all the way downhill to the point where she definitely died of an overdose some years later. And I'm like, thinking about it, where when people talk about the Hillary Clinton like list, it's a joke, but knowing the way that this girl sent a death threat as a middle schooler, and basically the trajectory that her life took, I definitely don't think Hillary Clinton had anything to do with her death. It's a matter of the way that they took that shit so fucking seriously. And then on top of that, because the email when you I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was like clearly not a threat. It was clearly not a threat, but they took it as such a threat that it ruined that girl's life to the point that she ended up overdosing on heroin. So I'm like, those two things are definitely correlated. It's not causational, but they're definitely correlated in that. Okay, here's another one. That school, one of the girls in my grade, her dad was a serial murderer who would
Up in Indy?
get gay dudes on dates and then fucking kill him and bury him in his yard.
Dude,
And
I think our friend Hane used to live next to that dude.
Yeah, I went to school with her son or with his daughter. And that's what I'm saying. That shit was Park Tudor for some reason seemed to be the focal point of the craziness of Indianapolis, because then you realize all of the richest people could cover up the crazy shit that they were doing, and then you see like it's insane. What still hasn't come out yet about Park Tudor to me, like I'm saying, so many kids were on steroids, dude. So many kids were on steroids. It's just like the whole reason I'm even talking about it is because, like I said, I thought it was just normal for fucking kids to be taking steroids, even though I didn't take them. It's a matter of so many kids at Park Tudor were taking steroids in the 90s that it was just like, oh, that's just what kids in high school do. Because then, do you remember that movie, The Program?
Oh, yeah. That's that football
that
movie.
That movie came out, and it basically normalized steroid culture. So, like,
there was that one extra big lineman who was clearly roided out and was far too aggressive with people.
But that type of behavior was okay with parents as long as the kid got a scholarship. And everybody knew that was the way things were. It's like, if these dudes were like out destroying shit, as long as they got a scholarship, nobody fucking cared. If they were out harassing people, assaulting people, nobody gave a fuck. That's the way it was in these schools. And those types of movies just represented the cultures that actually existed in the real world at the time, which is where I'm saying, like, it wasn't like that everywhere, but it was enough. It was rampant enough that I saw it firsthand to know that the shit that they did in the program is like what they were doing in high schools, like Park Tudor and Brebeuf and Cathedral.
I wonder how many movies get taken in multiple, some people get the cautionary tale and some people get the glorification story. I wonder how many people saw the program and thought, fuck, I'm never paying attention to college football again. And then on the other side, we're like, ooh, I can't wait to get to college so I can start juicing.
I want to say very few of the former and mostly the latter.
Man, what a strange fantasy to sell people. Take this stuff that'll shrivel your balls and give you titties later in life.
Joker or Cruella. And this is kind of where, we're in this culture that is let me phrase this. It takes cis white male revenge fantasies and sells them to impotent white males as means of living out these fantasies, but also intending to stoke a few into action by proxy of the numbers. And it's not a Manchurian Candidate thing. It's a matter of, if I glorify the Joker, there's gonna be a few people who try to be like him. So let's glorify the Joker and just stoke a few, and then we'll call it an art project and say this is a film. I'm just making this film.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make money. I made $1 billion. It wasn't to try to get people to lash out. And it had nothing to do with January 6th and the insurrection. Those two things have nothing to do with each other. But, if some people were inspired by the Joker, Good for them. I'm not saying what they should do with that inspiration. They take it.
I think from my experience reading Batman and watching consuming as much Batman movie, animated movie, whatever, as I can find, the Joker is kind of a weird continuum that exists at this like critical edge of insanity and criminal behavior, and it can emerge anywhere. Like anybody can become the Joker. It's not really limited to one person, and so I think that the Joker just happens in a sense, and I think that's what that movie really. That's what I got out of that movie. The Joker just emerges at this critical moment when they can't hold it back anymore. They break, and then that insane person just unleashes their fury. And in the case of that movie, it inspired a riot. But I don't know. I don't think the Joker is supposed to be a hero, or even an anti-hero, or even any kind of role model.
I mean, yeah, he's not meant to be, but the way that culture has romanticized white male anger and effectively monetized it to angry white males who are upset that they have titties and don't get to juice rampantly anymore with no repercussions. I think that's part of it, honestly.
They can't go to the gym and juice and flex their titties with their homies.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just
real quick. Elon Musk is a fucking idiot. He's a fucking idiot. I just wanted to say Elon Musk is a fucking idiot. You know what? Let's not even go into it. I just wanted to say Elon Musk is a fucking idiot. So I don't know if you've seen like the way that they're doing Invincible. They set up season 2 and 3 already.
Yeah.
And I think did you see Jupiter's Legacy?
Oh, not yet. That's been queued up.
Yeah, it's like a live action version of Invincible the way they did it. So This is kind of why I was wanting to like, and people were complaining about Jupiter's Legacy not being too complex. I'm like, here we go again. People complaining about complex storylines. It's like, I just get so sick of Americans and their need for simplicity, and then that by proxy ruining shit that's complex. But I'm glad Invincible is doing well enough to get seasons 2 and 3. But it makes me wonder if they did a live action version of Invincible, because they would probably have to make it into a movie. It's like they'd have to oversimplify it. Cause like I bought volume 2 of Invincible, which I'm going to call Thick Vincible. It's like one of the biggest anthologies of books that I've ever seen in my life. I want to say it's bigger than the Bible by like a lot, but that's just volume 2. And that's where I have a couple Invincible comic books, but I don't have nearly all of them. So I was just buying the books to start reading again to get back in, it's a really good story. So this is where I'm like, you can't take these types of really long, complex stories and water them down, because this is the shit they did with Lucifer. It's like a 2,000 plus page story. Hold on. I'm
trying to remember Blame. There's a manga called Blame that is like, I think like 6 or 7 volumes, and it's huge. I tried to read volume 1. I had a PDF of volume 1. And it was just like never ending. And I started reading it because there was the Blame manga Blame anime on Netflix. And I thought, oh, this is fascinating. And in the short period of time that they reduced the universe of blame from however many volumes there are. Jesus, there's 67 chapters of it. 6 large volumes. Anyways, they condense one storyline, or they pull one storyline out of it into one movie, and they don't even explore the fact that there is a structure that extends from the Earth and encapsulates Jupiter. Like there's a giant void that's where Jupiter was. I don't think it's possible to take some of these stories out of their universe and put them into a single movie or even a single live action series. It would just take too long for some of them. At least not, and they can't really compete versus the speed of the mind. Looking at storyboards of comics, it's just not really fair to a movie where our brains are infinitely more capable of providing us with an experience than a screen. I'm giving a lot of people the benefit of the doubt, but I'm highly entertained by what my brain comes up with, especially when I'm reading something.
Oh shit! They published new Lucifer material. Oh my god! I didn't even know. I didn't even know, man.
Are we getting more Lucifer? Are we?
We already got it. I'm saying I had only read volume 1, I think.
Okay.
But then they made Lucifer Omnibus volume 1 in November of 2019. And then volume 2 of that in November of 2030. And then there's volume 2, which came out in 2016 through 2017, which I don't think I've read.
There are 11 books.
But even volume 1, I think book 1 was like 392 pages. And I burned through those books so fast, not realizing how many pages were in them because I don't think they number them. So it's one of these things where you just read it and you just are reading and you're like, oh shit, I just read 400 pages before you know it. And then, like I said, I want to say it's like 2,400 or something. Okay. Oh no, I did. Okay, I did read through volume 2. But
Volume 1 paperback is 160 pages. Volume 2 is
Lucifer. No, yeah, the omnibus of volume 1 is 1,000 plus over 1,000 pages.
Volume 2 is 208 pages. Yeah, this looks like they've re-released this. There's 2 omnibus.
Yeah. Yep. That was a good series. But that's where, the TV show, if they had tried to turn that into a movie, it would have just been horrible. The Lucifer movie. Oof. And even in the TV show, they had to cut out so much.
Lucifer's charm is built up over time. In a movie situation, he would just be annoying.
Yeah, you wouldn't get a chance to.
Like none of those characters are good in. They all require a lot more setup for those characters to work right with each other. They're not really good at playing with each other with others. Yeah, I think that's actually kind of critical to a lot of these team-oriented movies where there's a group of people. Like there actually has to be some kind of dynamic that works. And I think a lot of Lucifer's characters are piecemeal. Like it's always about how they interact with Lucifer, or how they interact with what's his name, his brother,
Michael.
Yeah,
or
Amenadiel. Like there's always a side story aspect to it, but it's really one-on-one with Lucifer in that universe, and I don't think that can actually work. Like they try to have a solo Wolverine, and we all love Wolverine, but those movies are really challenging to watch. There's really only so much Wolverine screen time that anyone can actually withstand before it's like, okay, he's just gonna make the face and flex his arms, and the blades are gonna come out, and he's gonna kill a bunch of people. I'm not fooling myself. Nobody watches or gets into a Wolverine story for the dialogue.
All right. Oh man.
Imagine if try to imagine a movie, a Wolverine story that really is like dialogue driven, where he only kills like one person and it just doesn't work. Although that actually might be really interesting. Like you only see it happen once.
Searching for his identity.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we never really get a good explanation for his identity in the movies. Like
that would actually be a really, like, you only see it at the end. The claws only come out at the very end when he has to like protect himself, and then fade to black, and that's it. But the entire story is a detective story where he doesn't know who he is. He's lost his memory. He's just following all of the breadcrumbs until finally he meets Sabretooth, and it's just a big dude with a knife in his hand, and the blades come out, and that's it. That would be an interesting Wolverine story. Especially because if he doesn't even know that he has the claws, that would be cool. Disney, run with that, DC.
The claws ended up being like a weird. The way that we just kind of accepted them in the 80s, and then looking back on like, what kind of fucking mutation is that? And it's like, why did they call him the Wolverine? Because I don't know. There's all these, obviously it's because he's small and he smelled, but then having retractable claws is more like Catman. So
yeah, they couldn't. I mean, did Stiletto already exist? Let's see, when did Stiletto?
Oh, I guess they do have Wolverines do have semi-retractable claws as well. Okay. So it's not 100% off.
Stiletto predates Wolverine by a year, so they couldn't have called him Stiletto. That would have been such a travesty if they called Wolverine Stiletto.
But since they're semi-retractable, they should be like sticking out half the time.
Oh, that would just be terrible. He's walking around. He's got like short, stubby knives sticking out of his hands.
Yeah.
Every time he tries to like. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's supposed to hurt him every time he retracts them.
Yeah.
Or puts them out. So it's not like.
Well, I always thought it was funny in the comics. Like, I know they were working with trying to do perspectives and make it kind of look like the image was jumping out of the page sometimes, but they were more than one occasion. Those claws were longer than his forearms, and it's like, where are they hiding that shit? I mean, really, they have to fit in his forearm. They can't be longer than the forearm.
Mm.
I guess it's like Transformers. We never really questioned how they somehow managed to get around the whole, mass and volume constraint.
Well, it's like they had living material, so it wasn't limited to hard transitions. Like it was like, I think they didn't necessarily even explain it, but the way that the cube gave them the power to transform, it was basically like
kind of like quantum nanite substrate.
Kind of, yeah. And that's kind of where the material is not limited by the mass that is present in the shapes it can represent.
Oh man, so
it's like
that actually
scan the shape. It's like a 3D printer, but you have to get the scan first. That's what it was.
That just makes me wonder why they chose to come up with humanoid forms. If they were some kind of auto-replicating, restructurable living material. I feel like a space.
Bipedal isn't humanoid though. That's where we misappropriate bipedalism to humanoid.
Yeah, but they had like arms and a head. They didn't have their like head inside their chest. They could have been a giant space squid made out of metal. That would have been cool.
Lateral bisymmetry is natural. Like, or bilateral symmetry. Yeah. It's like it's a naturally occurring phenomenon. So it's like I thought about that for a while too, but then it's like, yeah, there's enough things on our own planet that have that same shape that we didn't create either. That's it's environmentally. The issue is, why would they start looking like 1980s cars before they came to Earth? That's the real question. How would they know what a fucking Porsche looked like if they never been to Earth? That's the real question.
Well, let's see. By the 80s, they would have had like 30 years of television transmissions to base their.
This is like before the 80s. This is also.
I know. I'm thinking of the cartoon.
The problem. No, but I'm saying in the way that the new cartoon did it. This is before the 80s on Earth existed.
Oh, that's true.
So they're fighting on Cybertron in the form of like 1980s vehicles before they've been to Earth and before these cars exist on Earth. So that's where I'm like, time out. What? Where do these shapes come from, guys? Come on now. So I think that's where they never really explained that one that well. Because I definitely have like gone down the from whence and where do the Transformers shape originate rabbit hole.
The Lotus, 80s Lotus. They had that kind of like direct from the wedge shape. Looked like they were flying in the future of the 80s. Man, those cars were weird looking. They're really cool looking. All this stuff's cool. There's another one from the 80s. I think it's called the Vector W8. And it was also a big flying, airplane on the ground wedge-shaped car. I wonder if they still make it. I doubt they make it. God, that thing's hideous. Oh, man. I mean, it's cool looking in a hideous supercar kind of way. I half expect it to transform into some kind of Gundam. Actually, no, this is more like a GoBot.
I mean, it looks like it's like a differently weighted Lamborghini Countach.
Yeah.
I'd drive that if somebody gave it to me. I wouldn't pay for it.
It kind of reminds me of those handheld vacuum cleaners like Dirt Devil.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't pay any money for one of those. It looks like it's trying way too hard to be a Countach.
I'm sure it's really fast. I'm sure it's fast as hell.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm sure it's fun to drive. I'm sure it's like really cool to be like, yeah, I've got a Vector W8.
But it's clearly a Countach. Like, it's we got Countach at home, Countach.
It's the this is what happens when a Countach sneaks off with a Dirt Devil for a late night tryst in the garage.
Yeah. There's just something that's misweighted with it. The middle is not quite weighted and shaped as smooth as the Countach, and I think they underestimated the shaping of the middle and the weight.
It looks like it definitely looks like it belongs in an 80s movie that takes place in like the year 2012.
It looks like those dudes at the gym who only lift upper body and don't do legs. some reason, that's what it reminds me of. I don't know why.
It's like a burger without fries.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man.
No, it's just a poorly executed vehicle.
I think that's like part of the design of the 80s. There's a lot of designs they were trying to be extra angular. They were probably, I mean, I'm sure they all had some kind of wind tunnel time on them because they all look like upside down wings.
What is it, the Fiero? Oof.
Well, that's a parts bin car that they just kind of threw together from, parts of other vehicles.
Oh man. Yeah, it was a mid-engine car, that's why.
Yeah, parts bin car.
Why did Pontiac Fieros catch on fire? Apparently oil leaked into the engine and combusted as the engine heated up. Huh.
Yep.
Crazy.
That's way after the whole. Wait, it was the Pintos that caught on fire because the fuel tank was right next to the rear bumper. This is like after that too.
Yep.
Pintos.
Same period though. Well, it's the same like 20-year period in that this is when America is really starting to use cheap ass parts in the cars. They're like, fuck it. Well, as long as nobody really rich dies, it's okay.
Yeah, these were happening in like the 70s, like 72, and the Pontiac Fiero stuff happens in the 80s. Like 84 to 87 is when they're really catching on fire, it looks like. So they had like 10 years to figure out how to make a gas tank dump its contents so it doesn't catch on fire. And they turned out
Couldn't do it.
Fuck.
They just moved it. They just moved the fire. Instead of being in the rear, now the fire will be in the front or the mid part because it's a mid engine.
A guy I went to high school with, he had I don't even remember what it was, but I remember driving home one day and seeing his car on the road on like just ablaze, like just pumping black smoke out from under the hood, and the interior was just on fire. And I thought, God, I hope he wasn't in there. And he wasn't. He got out. But it made me, I was thinking about it because, like, electric cars, when they catch on fire, you can't put them out because of the battery. But my buddy's car, they couldn't have put that out. None of the images of cars that catch on fire that I look at look like they can be put out. I drove by a truck a couple of years ago that was on fire. It was a new one too, and there was no way that thing could have been put out. These vehicles are all done.
Yeah, because water doesn't put out gas fires that still have
shit. If the aluminum catches on fire,
yeah, it's like it needs to actually be depleted of all the oxygen before those generally go out.
Yeah, but like I think it's magnesium or aluminum creates its own oxygen. Yeah, one of the metals that's used and commonly used in engine blocks is it like provides its own stable environment to combust.
Because it basically turns into what's it called? Tanner? Not. I think it's like tannerite.
Oh no.
No, it's not tannerite. Sorry, it's There's something that because this is what happened on the Hindenburg, I think, which is why it like burned up so quick.
Thermite.
Yeah, thermite. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, it like basically turns into like heated liquid metal
that turns into vaporizes. It turns into a super hot compound.
Yeah, I knew it was close.
It's like thermite. Aluminum oxide and ferrous oxide in the right proportions, and one ignites the aluminum and then just eats through everything.
Yeah, but that's why the Hindenburg was such a bad disaster, because that was basically the lining of the infrastructure. So not only was the hydrogen ignited, everything on the infrastructure turned to thermite almost instantaneously.
Yeah,
So it's
thermite
like-
is a pyrotechnic composition of metal powder and metal oxide. When heat ignited by heat, thermite undergoes an exothermic reduction oxidation reaction, and most of the varieties are not explosive but create bursts of heat in high temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sufficient to. They use it to melt ends of railroad together.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Here, let's pour some powder on it. Now ignite it, and this thing will weld itself together.
They also use it to. That's what they use to destabilize beams when they're going to destroy a building.
Mm. Speaking of buildings that are destroyed, there's a bridge between Tennessee and Arkansas, I believe, that has a giant crack in one of the main structural.
Yeah.
Like what the? It's like one of two bridges that connect those that area, or something like that. And I was thinking about it. It's like, man, how could they gonna repair this bridge? Because if it's got one big ass crack like that, it's probably got a bunch of other structural issues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a bridge like
they
that doesn't just break.
They avoided a major disaster by catching it when they did, but
It was completely like severed on that giant beam.
yeah, I'm wondering what percentage of America is like that. You know, like that bridge on 3rd Street. I do not like going over that thing, and I avoid it as much as possible.
Across the interstate.
Yeah. Like, holy shit.
I hate when I'm in traffic and I stop on it and the whole thing is just kind of bouncing up and down.
Yeah, and you can feel it.
Yeah.
Oh, that shit scares the fuck out of me because, like, it's not that I think that it's going to just collapse one day. It's like, I think that because of the cheap way it's built, if there's too many people going over it at one time and it gets the right vibration, it might collapse under those circumstances. Like, I don't think it's just going to collapse from like sitting there, but the stresses and the way you can feel it bend and flex.
I'm surprised that it hasn't dropped big chunks of itself onto the freeway itself.
I mean, I think it did. I don't know if it was that one, but I know one did in Bloomington because I remember when they had to fix it.
Yeah, they've had to do a lot of repairs on those, I think, over the past several years because of the expansion of I-69. What really blows my mind is they're bringing in these giant overpasses in one section at a time, these big beams, and then they lay them down, and then they build this structure that cars are supposed to drive over. And it just blows my mind that these things, that they can do this, of course, because I've been watching it for all these years, and just the roads fail prematurely. I have low confidence in the way these things were assembled. It sucks because there aren't very many ways to get to Indianapolis without driving underneath or on these things.
Sorry.
So it's like they spend all this time planning this giant construction project, this Works Project Act thing, basically, and they hire the lowest bidders who use poor asphalt blend, and then the roads get chewed up prematurely because they just didn't use the right materials, and then the construction takes even longer. It's just hard to have confidence in that kind of project when these things happen, and then they extend the builds like even further because they mismanage the entire thing right off the bat. And then of course the taxpayer has to pay like an overtime. I'm sure that there's some kind of agreement. If they don't hit their milestones, then they get fined or something, but they're still getting paid for all this stuff.
Yes. So with construction, generally, if you get done early, you're supposed to get a bonus in most cases. And then if you go over, you start paying for going over in a lot of cases, except when it's critical infrastructure that the state can't not afford to have finished. So once something's started, they can't just go get another contractor if the thing goes over, which is why we had like 37 and 465 under construction for basically our entire lives. There
was like one summer when 37 was not under construction.
Yeah, there was like one brief summer. But otherwise, it's basically been under construction our entire lives because of this shit. The way that these organizations like abuse contracts.
Because they can only work on 10-mile sections at a time, and then by the time they're done with that first 10-mile section, the one they started 5 years ago needs work again, and they're only like
exactly
2/3 of the way through the entire project.
Yep, that's exactly it. So these things never ever work out the way that they're supposed to because government officials are dumb and they get kickbacks on this shit. So
so I tried to drive to Indianapolis on 37 not too long ago, and I ended up taking 67 because as I got closer, I realized they had taken out the path. That first entrance into Martinsville just didn't exist anymore. You had to take this detour, and I got to the point where it's like, well, I'm on the road to 67. I can either follow this giant long line of traffic that's being diverted, or I can just take the road that I know how to take. So I took 67, of course. And when I looked on Google Maps later, when I got to Indianapolis, I looked at Google Maps to see like how traffic was diverted, and there was this giant red C-shaped thing in the middle of Martinsville. It was just packed because they were trying to divert, freeway traffic through a town.
Jesus.
They've had. I've lived in Indiana for 30 years. They've had 30 years to plan for this. 30 years. They had 30 years to plan for this, and they didn't do a goddamn thing. Like, what the? How are people actually still sitting on their butts about this? This is like this thing's been in the works since before I was. I'm assuming it was happening before I was born, and now like here we are, like decades later, they're finally deploying it, and then they're running into they're still running into local opposition or weird barriers or roadblocks. And this is like there's no stopping it now.
Yeah, it makes me not want to go to Indianapolis ever.
Don't you have family?
I do.
Yeah. Indianapolis is it's a strange place. Like the last few times I've been up there, it's only been to like visit, people, and it looks the same. The traffic's the same as I remember it. But it's just, there's this extra part of me that's like, just doesn't want to get out of the car. I think it's the pandemic. It's like pandemic anxiety. But not really, because there's not many places in India that I actually want to get out and walk around.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that this last year really taught me was there really isn't that much that's interesting to me outside. Like the things that are interesting, I will definitely go out of my way to go see or participate in. But there just haven't been a lot of things that made me want to tempt fate, go out and cram into a building with a bunch of people. There was one music event, but I wasn't vaccinated at the time. It's like, I'm not going to tempt fate. Just not. I know people who still aren't vaccinated.
It's just not worth it, man. Which is where the people who were like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go risk it all for a Bow Wow concert."
I listened to the internet stream, and it sounded fine. It sounded fine at home. It was cool. I wish I could have been there to hang out with my friends, but at the same time, it's like too soon for me. And I didn't get sick last year. I think that people, the collective memory is so short that it can't remember that it didn't get sick last year. Well, some of it didn't get sick. And I think that there are people who have confused, even there with the resistance to the measures, even though they didn't listen, or they complained the whole time and they didn't get sick, they benefited from a community that took it seriously. It's like the kids who can't eat peanut butter, so an entire school says no peanuts, and they change their peanut butter sandwich to like almond butter, and everyone's fine. And so the whole community makes a collective decision to make a change to make it safer for a few people. Well, the people that didn't wear masks and put up a big fuss about it. It's like, yeah, they just benefited from the collective efforts of everyone else. I think people may have forgotten that we've already been doing this kind of stuff for like, the last all of our lives, taking a breather, taking a step back, protecting people who are vulnerable, and it still has to happen. Like, we can't even. Actually, no. They this is kind of related but unrelated. New York City police have been banned from participating in Pride festivals or events until like 2025. That's a safety issue for more than just the people who want to go to Pride.
Yeah, because the cops start riots.
Yeah, they're not allowed. That makes it safer for everyone else. that's
and
how.
Watch, we'll see no riots in the next 5 years or 4 or 5 years or whatever.
Oh, New York City Pride. Yeah, everyone will be fine. Some off-duty officer will try and they'll go anyways. They won't let anyone know, and somebody will figure it out. It's them, and then they'll use phone telemetry and pinpoint them in the middle of it. And then there'll be a scandal.
Man, it's so crazy. Like, the cops in this country are just basically mafia. Holding everybody hostage, getting their fucking paycheck. Because I was thinking about it, there's a lot of firefighters that volunteer. The notion of, they're doing this dangerous job, we got to pay them more. They shouldn't be risking their lives for fucking money. That's called a mercenary. So if we're saying our police force, who are tasked with serving and protecting, are doing it for money, then we have a mercenary force. We don't have people who are out to serve and protect us. We have people who are willing to risk their lives for $1. Those are mercs. We don't need a merc force. We should take care of people who are willing to do it. I'm not saying they should do it for free, but they should not be doing it for money. Period. That's not why they should be there. So if cops are like, I got to put my fucking life on the line. Well, guess what? Volunteer firefighters.
Wait, isn't that what the job? Too. Putting their life on the line, that's like part of the job description.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, they're talking about, we need to defund, they're mad about defund the police. Well, it's because they're using the money to terrorize citizens. So that's the only way to make it so that they don't have fucking military vehicles.
And speaking of military vehicles and terrorizing citizens, the mayor of Bloomington, John Hamilton, that guy and his fucking Bearcat, like, they need to sell that fucking thing. Bloomington doesn't need a Bearcat.
It's just sitting there.
Yeah, it's used. They bring it out to
costing the city maintenance.
I think they drove it through I think they drove it through a neighborhood one time, and I'm not sure if it was like a show of force or a parade, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't a parade. And that's like a $250,000 vehicle. That would have been a year of programming. That could have hired a couple or maybe 3 or 4 social workers for the city, and then given them a vehicle, and they could just post up in somewhere in the incubator downtown, because they've got rooms down there. Ain't nobody using all that space. $250,000. Well, they're going to get a big check from the government to rebuild. I think it's like a $22 million federal grant.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And then
$22.27 million in federal funding.
Let's see how much the total project's going to be. Because if it's like a $200 million project and the government's...
Oh, yeah, they expect And the Monroe County government expects to receive 28.79 million, which is more than 22.27.
Nice.
So the rest of Monroe County is going to get $6.5 million to develop. $50 million is going to be, wait, holy crap, that's like all of it. Okay, they're gonna work on lost city revenue, housing insecurity, economic recovery, and public infrastructure. That's their bucket list. That doesn't seem like it's untenable.
Huh.
They like fucking up the roads though. Like next thing you know, there's gonna be there's gonna be like a 10 square block area that has like all one-way streets, and you can't find parking anywhere. And where you can park, it's all full.
Fuck! They do that shit during the summer too.
Yeah, that's probably what's gonna end up happening. They're gonna. I don't know. It might be cool. I don't drive downtown very often, so
that's true.
It might actually be amusing.
I avoid downtown for that reason, though.
Yeah,
the whole reason we avoid downtown is because of that.
Fucking Byzantine parking and yeah, one-way streets.
Nobody wants to get stuck in that shit. It's horrible. But yeah, I always wonder. There's a lot of times where they'll say some shit that sounds reasonable, but then the way that they execute it here, it's just so terrible. Bloomington execution is real bad.
Yeah. Well, it's an old town. I mean, the last several years, there have been sections of roads that have been collapsing because they were just washed out beneath the brick, just gone. And I mean, my house is like 90 years old, so I think there's a lot of old Bloomington that's like way overdue for some attention. So it'll be interesting. And then there's definitely a lot of roads that are just terrible, but then there are some roads that aren't. So I don't know. I wouldn't complain if the city decided to build a sewer line up the road that I'm on and hook my house up to it for free. I wouldn't complain about that at all. And if that means being a part of the city, then I guess that's part of being in the city.
Well, and that's what's so weird to me is like, so you're technically not in the city proper, but you're in the county.
I have a Bloomington address.
Right. You get certain things from the city, but not other things. So like, do they shovel out there?
The county does.
County does?
Yeah. The county and highway garage is the department that handles all that stuff. So they've got all the big trucks, the sand and salt trucks and the big plow trucks. And then I think they contract a lot of the plow stuff. Because I see several different plows going through periodically in winter. Like similar routes, like they're all coming from same general areas, but it's hard to say.
Then that's where you just got lucky then, because I have a friend who lives off of 446, and it's still, I mean, you wouldn't think that it's not in the city, but the way that they draw the lines of the city, it's still part of Bloomington, but they don't get any of the city's like direct benefits. So the city stops shoveling snow like down 446. I think it's basically right at 446. I want to say.
Yeah, I think I got lucky with the whole geographic lottery. I am in a neighborhood that has a bunch of fairly old houses. That are kind of surrounded by a bunch of really new houses and new development, and some of them are very big properties. And so I think that there's a lot of money on the south side of town between Bloomington and the lake, and I think that kind of motivates the county to pay attention down here. The north side seems to be a little bit neglected. Everything west of 37 seems to be like, yeah, we'll get to it, but Bloomington proper, that section east of the highway, but between like 17th Street and north of Hillside, that whole area seems to be really, really well maintained.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an interesting situation, like the way that that infrastructure maintenance is carried out. Because like I feel like I think there's some roads that are clearly like main arteries for transit, and so those will always get attention first. But it's always interesting is like you'd get off of the main drag and you go into a neighborhood a few blocks, and then it's almost like they've only gone through once, and cars get buried in snow because nobody's going anywhere. I guess there's not enough time to do all of it.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, I wonder about people who, I remember, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, we had like a really bad ice and snowstorm and no one was ready for it. And I remember some people that I know on like Facebook, they were all getting trucks and getting them ready to mount a plow. That shit's expensive. And so I wonder how many people actually went and did that. And then for the last few years, we haven't had very much snow at all.
Mm-hmm.
Except for like, you know, a few big nights, and then that's it.
Right. Yeah.
Like I wonder how that whole economy fared, because I can't imagine that any economy that relies on snowfall that's just like that's the kind of thing that like a well-established business can afford to start offering that kind of service, because they're insulated by year-round services. But I don't know.
I think if you get the right kind of truck, then you could alternate between towing lawnmowers and attaching
plows in the winter.
Yeah. That's probably what the ones who are still in business do.
Man, I wonder if we're gonna have any electric snow plows. You know, it's like the Cybertruck or the Rivian truck are released into service. I wonder if there'll be any that are bought with fleet use intentions and are like used to plow snow. I wonder how many businesses are actually going to use those kinds of trucks for real work, or if we're going to have to wait another couple of years before like Ford or GM to release a giant truck with an electric system that can, like, basically a small semi. Something like actually intended for fleet use.
Yeah.
Because I don't get the impression that Teslas are fleet vehicles.
I mean, I thought they were making fleet semis.
I mean, yeah, they are. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
But I don't think the Cybertruck is going to be used for like landscaping.
No. But I
don't think the Rivian's truck is going to be used for landscaping. That's what I mean. Like, I think we're going to have to wait even longer.
Tesla makes a full-on semi, or they're making a full-on semi. It's like, yeah, like an actual
Tesla semi. Okay, cool. Well, that's cool. It's still being powered by, like, you know, cobalt.
$150,000. Yeah. 20 grand to reserve it.
Speed up a 5% grade, 60 miles per hour. Hey, that's great. We don't want these things going faster than 60 miles an hour. .300-mile range, though, so this is like there and back type of load transportation. Huh.
Yep. So
I wonder how quickly those things are going to eat up their batteries.
I don't think they're the only ones that exist even. I want to say Volkswagen might make one.
Electric semi-truck. Volvo.
Yeah, I knew something with V. Yeah.
Volvo's great. They've got that automated driving system. Jean-Claude Van Damme did a commercial where they filmed the two trucks driving in reverse and then slowly drifting apart so he could get into the splits.
So then there's also Nikola 2 Motor Company that
The
does
Volvo only goes
electric
150 miles. That's that's not good enough yet.
Oh damn, this one says up to 900-mile range. Huh.
That's badass. That's what we need.
If that's the case, that'd be really crazy. Huh.
So that's the kind of thing that goes one place and stops, recharges, turns around, and goes back.
I mean, if it's in the Midwest, they wouldn't even need to recharge on the full trip.
Yeah.
Like you could drive to.
I think that this kind of. I think that a distribution model that uses electric semis that have like, let's say 600-mile round trip range, because my experience with batteries in cold weather is that it cuts their power down. Anytime you have to pull a real load, it cuts the power down. All of these things actually eat into power, or the length of time that power can be delivered. And so we'll see. But just to be conservative, if they say 900, maybe 600 is a reasonable thing.
But if they're keeping the battery in the semi, then the weather is not going to be, or in the trailer, which who knows where the actual battery's located on these things. They might have it in the truck, but I guess they'd have to have it in the truck so the trailer could be detached. But that's where, again, there's a way that batteries can be positioned in a vehicle. So
I think even with like a 600-mile round trip range, pulling a load in both directions, I think if we have like if they update the train system that we have, then we can get things around more easily. Then using a shortened range semi truck makes a lot more sense. I think that's one of those things that nobody really there's no dialogue about the train transportation, the rail freight infrastructure. I know it exists, you know it exists, we all know that it exists, but it's also like ancient.
Yeah, but so is the bridge infrastructure. So
that's
it's
true.
Like, yeah, do you want a bunch of electric semis driving off of a broken bridge? It's the same problem. Like, yeah, we could put a bunch of electric trucks on the road, but they're going to be driving over fucking bridges that are falling apart. And we all know that too. That's how we open the show, with that big ass bridge that is falling the fuck apart because we can't keep our shit straight here.
So
for some goddamn reason.
There are 617,000 bridges approximately across the United States, and apparently 42% of these bridges are at least 50 years old, and 46,000 or 7.5% are considered structurally deficient.
Jesus.
Meaning they're
that's
in poor
just
condition.
The ones that have been
examined.
600. Yeah, I was gonna say those are just the ones. Because how many licensed bridge examiners are out there?
I bet there's
a lot of people are.
I think there's one per county. There's like a county engineer, like structural or civil engineer, who has to go and do all this stuff. Like per county. Do you really
think they're really trained well enough in bridges? Because this is what I'm saying. Like
I think some of them are.
That's what I'm saying. Some.
Like I know a guy that I worked in a building with a guy he was an engineer, and when the last that I saw him before he left the building and before I left Right Res, he took a job as the county engineer for wherever Columbus is, and he used to build bridges, and so I know that guy at least has the kind of experience necessary to examine a bridge, but that doesn't actually mean everyone does. I can't know for certain, but maybe people who have degrees in structural engineering all have like.
How old was that guy?
Old.
Because then I was gonna say, when's the last,
like old enough to be my dad old?
Because so that's what I kind of figured, in that there's not gonna be enough of those guys because we haven't been building bridges that consistently. So this is where there's only gonna be a small demographic that actually has the education and the physical experience building the bridges. Because on the one hand, you're going to have people who have the education, but not the physical experience. And then on the other hand, you're going to have people who have the physical experience, but not the education. And it's such a small intersection of people, especially in a post uh like I don't even like want to call it necessarily Madison Avenue exploitation because it's just capitalist exploitation. But when they stop caring about materials as much, when we're saying, okay, how many bridges that have been built in the past 40 years were actually up to code and weren't just lied about? Because then that's where there's this whole element of it's the same thing with the Volkswagen diesel scandal where it's like, you know, how many people were able to check the lies when they were building, and then how many people were building not up to code, thinking they were building up to code because the people that were telling them the process were lying. So there's going to be this huge overlap of people who weren't building following code and then weren't informed as to what was happening in the field because they're disconnected from it. So that's how we end up with 42% being like structurally unsound or whatever the percentage
Structurally
was.
deficient.
Yeah.
They just need repairs. They'll be okay.
I bet that 42% is reflective of what percentage of quote unquote bridge engineers don't actually know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
I bet that if we looked at it and we started to check credentials and started to check who was claiming that they were bridge engineers and how much experience they had, the numbers would show, like 42% roughly were lying about their credentials.
I mean, I'm sure there's a bell curve to it, and some of the reports would probably have been shelved because the county didn't have enough money to repair it or something, or they didn't qualify for federal funding that year, or there was some other thing going on that prevented them from allocating enough funds to do any kind of maintenance. I'm sure that happens too. I mean, this is America. There's got to be palm greasing to get things done here. So,
which again, it's like if they don't have the money to do that, they don't have money to
have a bridge in the first place,
or have an actual bridge expert. Like,
yeah,
how are you gonna have a bridge expert but no team to fix the bridge? Like, that's not how America works. America will hire the people to fix the bridge before they hire the bridge expert. That's just the way it is because it's easier to just go out and fix it than to study it and then fix it. That's just the way America works.
Meanwhile, China just builds a new bridge and they iterate and iterate and iterate until they get a bridge that lasts a long time.
Yep. And people may die, but eventually...
Oh, they're definitely going to die.
People won't die.
Yeah. Well, that's like the whole, like, the concept behind the Chinese space program. They've just got so many applicants to choose astronauts from that are taikonauts? Astronauts? Taikonauts? They're taikonauts. They've got so many candidates to choose from that they've just got more options for people to send up into space. They got more engineers to work on a problem. They have bigger teams to do these development projects, so they can have more examples to choose from.
I just assume whatever we have, they have times 3. Is what the numbers should roughly work out to.
Yeah.
It's like if we have 1,000 engineers, they probably have 3,000.
Plus, they're probably working with all of the designs made by NASA, anyways. So
right, yeah, yeah.
They've got the engineering team, the reverse engineering team, the obfuscated engineering team.
Well, and that's where, reverse engineering is obviously an art, but because of the way our intellectual property rights protections work, it's very much discouraged here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, if you reverse engineer something, you might get sued. Whereas there, it's like, yes, let's reverse engineer everything.
Yeah, well, it's they're democratizing the process, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
If it results in broader and more diverse testing of an idea, I think that's fine. I think that the big stink is that somebody's not getting paid, and I think that we've talked about how science being completely free of science in America, in the West, is not free from the profit motive, and so it's hard to have. I mean, all of our research is based on, can this make money at some point? We can't divorce it.
I'm seeing one of my friends got their Coinbase account hacked. And it looks like there's a huge breach. Oh, so this is also potentially implicating, because Nice Hash just canceled Coinbase withdrawals directly to Coinbase. So I wonder if something's happening behind the scenes that they're not letting on. Yeah, because my friend just posted this like 40 minutes ago. It's fucking crazy. Well, I had some weird shit happen with my account like yesterday. Now that I think about it, I was trying to move Bitcoin between wallets, and it like sent it to some random address. And it ended up in my wallet, but I'd never seen it do that before. So there's definitely some weird shit happening at Coinbase. But yeah, my friend lost, hold on, $1,000, $2,000, $2,200 or $2,300, because then it started draining from his bank account.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Let that be a lesson to everyone. Connect your Coinbase to a dummy account.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You have to have a specialized bank account if you're going to get into crypto.
Whoa.
You just have to.
That's fucking crazy. Yeah.
It's gambling. It's like there's no it's not insured. It's not like a bank where if they get robbed, the bank restores your money because it's federally backed. It's the Wild West of gambling. It just feels like a bank account.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of this shit isn't FDIC insured, but he may have a case. If this happens to more than him, there may be like a class action lawsuit.
Oh yeah. I think that's the only way. That's the only recourse, is if there are other people that this happened to, and they can somehow get in touch with each other, and one of them happens to be a lawyer who knows how to file a class action lawsuit.
Yeah.
Surely that's possible. I mean, anybody involved with Coinbase is probably tech savvy in some way, and they probably know an attorney somewhere.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. But this seems like it's like happening in real time, which is where. Yeah, that's super crazy. Well, and you know what? I wonder. I think there's a couple of fake Coinbase apps on that have made it onto the Google or Apple platform.
Mm.
So yeah, he may not be using, because the screen I'm seeing, it doesn't even look like the normal Coinbase stuff from which I normally see, which is where I'm like,
weird. It's like some kind of redirect attack or something.
Well, I mean, because Coinbase is popular, they might have slipped a fake app into the App Store pretending to be Coinbase, and Google might not have caught it. Like they may have like uploaded it under one name and then changed it in the App Store somehow, so it looks like it's Coinbase, and then people are downloading.
Oh yeah, that's just nefarious shit.
Yeah.
That's I don't know, man. I try to minimize the amount of computing I do on my phone. I think that it's fine for all the things that I need to do. I don't really need it to be my centerpiece of my computer life.
Oh shit! So I just found a Reddit thread 17 hours ago, somebody got hacked for over 6K in their Coinbase account.
Well, I think what was it? Mr. Musk opened his mouth on Saturday Night Live, and Doge took a dive or something like that, and then he said that they weren't going to take bitcoins for Teslas, and then Bitcoin took a dive, and that's just, we're in a very weird world where celebrities or people with a lot of public visibility can change the outcome of a casino game just by saying a few words on Twitter or on television.
Yep, unfortunately.
You'd think that somebody would get in trouble if they went on a nationwide platform and said something that dramatically altered, some kind of economy.
But that's why he got protection on his fucking Twitter account from the SEC, so he can go in there and say this shit and manipulate without getting in trouble. It's fucking bullshit, man. Absolute bullshit. Because then he'll say shit that's just not even... The whole reason I was saying he's a fucking dumbass earlier is because he's on Twitter right now posting about cryptos that he knows nothing about. He clearly knows nothing about. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And people are trying to educate him in a way. Some of them are being adversarial, but the way he's responding to it, he's like trying to use his like, oh, I'm a techno genius clout to like make it seem like the people responding to him are wrong, when in fact he's wrong. So he's looking like the biggest fucking idiot right now, being condescending to people who are trying to tell him accurate information to correct all the bullshit he's like putting out on his Twitter account right now. And I'm just looking at this shit like, man, all of his little fanboys are probably like tucking their little heads in their shells, like, because he's such a dumbass. And the more people can call him out, and when he ventures into spaces that he does not know about and tries to be the master of that domain just because he's fucking Elon Musk, and he comes in and makes all these goddamn dumbass statements, now you have a ton of people just correcting him left and right, and he's trying to act like he's still right, and he's just looking more and more like a fucking idiot. Every goddamn thing he tweets about crypto, he looks more and more and more like an idiot because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. I'm loving every minute of it, but it's like, it's really crazy to see this shit play out in real time, because I'm like, I've been calling him a charlatan for at least a couple of years now, and it's really funny when I know people like, who the fuck is this guy? He's not a billionaire. Well, actually, what is he calling? Like, people think that if you're rich, you just know everything. And the people that feed into that and then go with it and think that they know everything because they're billionaires, like Elon Musk, are fucking dumbasses that then like sniff their own farts. They're gassed up on their own farts. He's so high off of his own farts that he can't smell shit. He can't smell his own shit. He doesn't know when he's full of shit because everybody has been gassing him up. But, oh, Elon, that fart smells awesome. Your farts smell amazing, Elon. So nobody, now that he's so full of shit, and he's been told for so long that it's okay to be full of shit, that he's out here just spewing bullshit, just spouting a bunch of bullshit, and all his little followers are eating it up. But all the people who are like, know a little bit about anything are seeing this going, what the fuck? How is this dude this dumb? He can't be this dumb. He can't possibly be this dumb. He can't possibly be this dumb.
Exceptional Radio.
Exceptional Randos Show is produced live in Sunroom Studios' Base Capsule and in partnership with KLST 103.5, RadioCallisti.org. Remember to catch our Exceptional Randos live stream on YouTube every Sunday between 2 and 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you have a story, idea, or question that you would like to share, we want to hear from you. Thanks for listening.
Well, that was random. Exceptional Radio.